Welcome to the short course on EXIF data, where we'll uncover the hidden details embedded in photos and videos. You might not realize it, but images and videos you capture holds much more information than what meets the eye. From device details to location data, this information, known as metadata, can reveal significant insights and pose privacy risks. Our goal today is to explore what EXIF data is, how to access it, and how it plays a role in cybersecurity and digital forensics. Thanks for watching. Before you dive in, I wanted to share that you can earn continuing education credit for this content. Just visit natsar.com and register for free to access this presentation. Instructions and a link to access it are available below. Upon completion, you'll receive a certificate of attendance, which can be used toward continuing education hours. It's our way of giving back to the cybersecurity community. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date on our latest videos and other resources to aid you in your cybersecurity journey. Also, feel free to explore our on-demand courses and other valuable cybersecurity resources at natsar.com. The objectives of this course is to understand what metadata is and its relevance in digital files, explain the origins, structure, and purpose of EXIF data, identify common fields found in EXIF metadata, demonstrate how to extract and analyze EXIF data using ExifTool, discuss privacy implications and how to mitigate those risks, and we'll explore how EXIF data can be used in digital forensics for investigations. We'll start with Module 1, the background of metadata. So what is metadata exactly? Well, it's simply defined as data about data. It provides us some context for digital files. Metadata can describe and also help us organize and even manage our data more efficiently. It can help with things like searchability, authenticity, and traceability. There are three major types of metadata. Descriptive, which includes things like the file title, the author of the document or file, any tags that you might have associated with it, and keywords. There are structural elements like the file format itself, the arrangements of components within the file. And then administrative, the creation date and time, copyright information, permissions, even embedded digital watermarks and things like that can help trace and authenticate some sort of file or image. Now, examples can include things like the file created, modified, and accessed dates and times, those MAC dates and times that are so important to us in digital forensics. The author of a document, the number of times it's been revised, and even how long it took to edit the last time. And even the device to create a file, such as a camera, make, or model. So we've talked about metadata. A subcomponent or a type of metadata is EXIF data. This exchangeable image file format is a type of metadata for digital things like pictures and videos and audio. It can help us see more than just a picture or video or listening to audio itself. There's this hidden metadata, things like the location of where a picture was taken, timestamps from the camera itself, not necessarily from the file itself, and even software used to create a particular file. Some real-world examples used in EXIF data can help track movements of suspects. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Even verifying authenticity. For example, journalists will use this. If someone sends them a video or a picture, they may look at the EXIF data to see, well, was this really taken at this particular location in the world at this date and time? And is it something that is in the realm of possibilities based on other factors in the video or image? For instance, if the video clearly was shot in the fall, but the EXIF date and time is in the summer, is that something that needs to be further investigated? So there's lots of uses for EXIF data that way. Certainly in criminal investigations, EXIF data is used all the time to figure out where was a suspect at when they took this picture. Or if you find a picture and there's EXIF data embedded into it, maybe seeing the GPS coordinates of that picture or the serial number of the camera that took that picture can help put things together to link it to a suspect or a particular victim. Again, EXIF data is embedded in image, audio, and video files, and it can help us document how, when, and where a file was created. It was originally developed by the Japanese Electronics and Information Technology Industries Association back in the 1990s, and it was originally created to help photographers understand camera settings. So for instance, if you started using digital cameras and you took pictures and you said, wow, these really turned out nice, these not so much, what did I set my camera to on these photos that turned out nice? What were my flash settings? What was the aperture, the f-stop, all of those things that might be helpful to know to then learn from and take better pictures overall. Those use cases still exist today. Photographers still use that information, but now we use it for a lot of other things like digital forensics to learn clues about where images were taken, what device was used to create them, and governments and journalists may use it to authenticate media. There's a lot of things you can do with EXIF data, which I'll talk about as we go on here, but they are still used for governments. For instance, if somebody creates a video purporting to be a terrorist organization, for example, and they send that to the government, or the government gets a hold of it somehow, and there is EXIF data inside of it, they may look to see, is there anything in here that can help legitimize or show that this, in fact, is not a valid representation, or it's been somehow altered, or it's just completely generated by AI or computers. There's some common fields in EXIF data that we'll take a look at. Things like the date, the time, the file size, and the format. Now, in forensics, we often look at the modified access and created dates and times of a file. That is still present in EXIF data of the file itself, but there's also fields for the date and time that the image was digitized or created by a camera. And often those two are different. In fact, sometimes you can say, this is the date and time that that image was actually taken with this camera. And then this is the date and time that it was seen getting added to a file system. So you could say that possibly, although you can't say for sure, but it was taken on this date and time, and then a week later it was placed onto a computer or something and transferred around because it updated some of the dates and times in the EXIF data. So it's just more information that we can use, but that digitized date and time is often very valid because it's set by the camera itself. Now, most of the images we look at today are from smartphones, and the date and time is generally set by the network, so those are incredibly accurate. If it's from a digital camera that's traditional, that does not have Wi-Fi connectivity or a GPS chip inside of it, the date and time could be wrong, and we just have to keep that in mind too, and that's where you use other pieces of evidence that you're gathering to help legitimize, is this an actual picture that's got the correct date and time based on what I can tell from other files, or maybe even the picture itself. Sometimes you'll have somebody take a picture and in the background there's a clock. It doesn't give you the date, but it does give you the time, and you could use other things to figure out is this about the right time of year based on the things I'm seeing, again, if that is available in the image. But as an investigator, you have to take all of this in and try and figure out what you can do and what sense you can make of the evidence that you're seeing. So you can also have the camera make, model, even the lens that's used, the serial number of the device, and the firmware version of the camera. With geolocation, you can have the latitude, longitude, and even the altitude of where the camera was at when it took the picture. And also, if the picture's been edited, or video or audio, it could also have some embedded EXIF data from Adobe Photoshop, for instance, or some other tool that has altered that file may have an entry in the metadata itself. Now, there's a few caveats with EXIF data that I wanted to go over with you. First, the lack of EXIF data does not mean that the image is automatically fake, computer-generated image, CGI, or AI-generated. I've had attorneys, in cases I've worked before, say, well, there's no EXIF data in these images, so they must be fake. That is not true. It could be a reason, but it is not the only reason why EXIF data may not be present in an image. In fact, many online platforms, including social media sites like Facebook and Instagram and others, will by default strip out the EXIF data when you upload pictures to them. It's for two reasons. One, to protect your privacy, and two, they just don't really want to store that much extra data. Even though it's small, when you get hundreds of thousands or millions of pictures being shared all the time, it does start to add up. So if you were to download an image that someone shared on Facebook, for instance, it's not going to have all of the EXIF data in it that we're going to see as we do our demo here in just a little bit. Devices can also have EXIF data turned off. I have a screenshot here on the right from an iPhone where it's set to never embed GPS location information in images. There will be other EXIF data provided in that image, but GPS coordinates will not be one of them. Now, in an iPhone, you can even go in and picture by picture or video by video turn off the embedded location as you share that with someone else, just to protect your own privacy. So just be aware that those settings exist. You can also, on an image, you can click on an image that you took with your iPhone and change the location. So sometimes somebody could do that where they've purposefully changed the location to throw you off. Again, EXIF data can be removed or altered with software. So the same software I'm going to show you in this course that allows you to read EXIF data also allows you to write to it. So you could just overwrite all the EXIF data to get rid of it. You could go in and intentionally modify the dates, the times, the camera used, the GPS location, all of that, just to throw off an investigator. And that's the last bullet here. It may be a tactic, in fact, to keep the EXIF data in there, but to change it to create some sort of plausible deniability or something else that a criminal or someone in being investigated may want to do to throw someone off their trail. So I want to talk about a case study that I've had. I've actually used EXIF data many, many times in my career to advance a case. And I remember sometimes being in court, being able to say something like what's on this screen here. I could say this photo, I would have that photo displayed as an exhibit, was taken by this camera. I would have that also available as an exhibit. On this date and time, the camera's model and serial number are provided and in this location. And I would have a Google Earth view of the house or where the car was parked when this photograph was taken. And I've had cases where the picture is of obvious criminal activity, and to be able to say that the defendant's iPhone with this serial number was used on this date and this time at this house to take this photo is pretty damning evidence. And of course, you have to be able to back all that up, which I was able to do through validating that the software works the way it's supposed to, that that is actually the camera, and independently verifying as much details as I can. But that is pretty incredible to be able to say just by some information embedded in the picture that most people don't even know exist. And from a jury's perspective, when they hear that, that is really interesting to them, of course, but it's also very hard for the opposing counsel to argue with a whole lot because it just is what it is. It's in there. Though they may ask you questions like, well, isn't it true that could be changed? And how do you know that this was really the information in the image? And you can walk them through step by step about how it's stored, and you could look at it in a hex editor and see the data that's in there and how it's embedded by the camera by default and all of those things. But that's kind of going down a rabbit trail, which they may sometimes do just to throw you off or to try and discredit you, see how much you really know about this stuff. But this can be very, very helpful information. I've also used it in insider threat cases where someone was using their phone to take pictures of documents that they should not have been and saving those or sending those out and being able to trace it back to a particular person's phone. So that can be really helpful in a number of investigations. Now that we've covered the basics about EXIF data and what it is and how we use it in investigations, let's now switch over to a practical demo of using a tool called ExifTool, which is a free open source tool that I've used for many years and it's just great. And I'm going to be using that tool in Kali Linux. It's built into that. It's one of the tools that automatically comes with it. But as you'll see in a little bit, you can use ExifTool without Kali just on its own. So let's head over and jump into the demo. Okay, I'm going to show you now how to use Kali Linux to look at EXIF data of a video, which the same process would be true for a picture. In this video, I've got Kali Linux already booted up, and I'm logged into this. Now, the tool I'm going to be using is ExifTool, and I'll have a link below on where you can download it. It's open source. It's a great tool. I've used it for many, many years in forensic settings. I validated it, and it just does a great job with EXIF data. Now, it can write as well as read EXIF data, so you just need to be aware of that. Obviously, make sure you know how to use the tool so you are not making any writes to these things, but obviously we wouldn't be doing this on original evidence anyway. So in this case, I have a video that is me driving my tractor blowing snow in the middle of winter here, just not too many days ago. and you'll see the video, and then we're going to take that video that I shot with my iPhone and see what kind of EXIF data we can get out of it. So let's just launch a command prompt here, and I have the video already copied to Kali right there. And there's a few different things we can do with ExifTool. I'll show you a couple of different ones. So first we can just say ExifTool space and grab this and drop it right into our command prompt. That gives us the full path automatically by doing that. And when I hit enter, it's going to run the default configuration of ExifTool, which is going to give us a ton of information about this video. So I'm going to do that now, and you can see how quick it is, and I can scroll up and see information already about this. Now I'll go through a little bit more in depth as we go along, but just at a high level, you can see the file name, the version of ExifTool that I'm using, the fact that it's in Apple QuickTime Video, and it gives us some dates and times, which again, I'll get into in just a minute. So let me clear this and then show you a different way to do the same type of thing. So this time I'm going to change directory or CD into my desktop. So I'm going to say CD home student desktop and then hit enter. And I'm going to do ls to list things and see what's there. And sure enough, the video is there. So now that I'm in that directory, I can just say ExifTool space and then start typing IMG because we know that that's what it's called. Hit tab to autocomplete and hit enter. It does the same thing. There are a number of command options that you can use with ExifTool as well. So I just did ExifTool to show you all of the different things that come through by default, but you can do tons of different things and have data come out differently, focus just on one area. So I'll show you another thing you can do too, is we can pipe out these results to a text file. So if we wanted to just have this as an artifact embedded into our forensic report or provide it to somebody, I'm going to hit the up arrow just to show me the last command I typed, hit space, put the symbol there, and then I'm going to say, which means pipe this out or export it out to, I'm going to put it in the, we're already in the desktop, so I'm just going to call it exif.txt, enter. Now, if I wasn't in the desktop already, in the desktop directory, I would have to give it a full path of where to save that. Otherwise, it's just going to save it in the directory that I'm running this command from. And so if I was in my home directory or something, I would need to make sure to specify exactly where I want this. So you can see it created this text file. If I double click that, it's all the same information that you've seen in the command prompt. And so this is just a really quick way of showing you this information. Now you can export this a number of different ways, CSV, HTML, all of those are options. You can also bulk extract data. So I've done this on a number of cases where I had lots of photos. I ran all of them against EXIF data, had it put out the output into a CSV, and then I could quickly sort by dates and times and locations, GPS coordinates, things like that. Speaking of GPS coordinates, there's also a command you can type to really hone in on the GPS information and in fact do a lookup to see where it is at least based on the GPS coordinates for that photograph. So to do that, I'm going to type in ExifTool TAC API and then geolocation, if I can spell. And you can see it's in here because I've done this once before, and then I'm going to put this quote TAC geolocation star in quote, and that essentially is a wildcard saying that anything that's inside of the results that has geolocation and anything else after it included in this, and I'm going to put it here. You see I have the full path defined of where that image is. I don't have to do that this time because I happen to be in the desktop directory already, but if I wasn't, then I'd give it the full path of where that video exists. So I'm just going to do IM, hit tab, it'll autocomplete because that's the only file in the desktop called IMG, and hit enter. Now when I did that, it gives me now city, region, subregion, country code, all of this information that it came up with from this video. And again, a picture would be just the same. Now I've obviously blurred out some of the information here just so I don't have a straight shot right to my house, but it is very, very precise on where this is located. And you can see if you were to do this for pictures or videos that you are investigating, this can be really helpful to pinpoint where a suspect or a subject might have been at, things that they did while they were there, what pictures that they took, and you can build quite a timeline. And even in the past, I have created Google Earth maps showing an individual's travel location with dates and times using GPS location. And I could just say, in this date and this time, they were here based on a picture or video they took, or at least their phone took. Sometimes it's a selfie, so you know they took it. And then they were here and they were here, and you can just plot their whole activity based on the GPS coordinates that are built into the phone. Seen me do this a couple of times. I just want to go through in more detail the information. Now I've piped all of this out to a text file like I showed you before. And this gives us the version number of the EXIF tool, the name of the file, where it was located from a file path, the file size in megabytes. And then we've got some dates and times here that are interesting. One thing you would immediately notice is it's got the time zone offset. So this is -5 hours from UTC. I am in New York. I'm in the East Coast time zone, so that is correct. That I would be -5 from where I'm at. Now, one thing to note is these 3 dates and times are associated with the file's metadata, not from the camera necessarily. So we'll get into more dates and times here as we go, but just know that this file modification date and time is January 29th, 2025 at 8:51 a.m. and 18 seconds, and again, -5. So this is local time. Then we see the file access date and time, February 24th, 2025 at 4:49 p.m. local time. This has nothing to do with when I actually took this video. This is coming from the file system. This happens to be the date and time of when I put this video on the desktop of my computer. This is coming from the NTFS file system. It is nothing to do with the date and time of the image itself. However, this can give us some information. Well, when I say of the image itself, I mean of the actual EXIF data of when the video or the picture, if this was a picture, was taken. This is coming from the file system. So this would tell us when the file system was placed in this particular directory. It doesn't give us the directory it was located in, because even if we changed this, it's not going to change this date and time. So this does give us some information about perhaps when this file was moved from the phone or the camera and placed onto a computer. The inode date and time is from the NTFS file system as well. So if you've done any studying on NTFS file systems, you know about inodes, and that's where it's getting that date and time also. It gives us some information about the file permissions, the fact that it's an MOV file, that it was an Apple QuickTime is mostly associated with MOV files. Now it gives us the media data size. This is in bytes instead of megabytes. So if you rounded the bytes up, you would get 61 megabytes. And then we've got the created date and time. Now this might look familiar to you because you see that it's 13:51 and 18 hours versus 8:51 and 18 seconds, also on the same date of January 29th. What this means is that this is from UTC. There is no time offset here. So we have local time here, we have UTC time here, and also these are the dates and times that it was created with the camera. You're going to see this set a couple more times. So these are coming from the digital camera. These up here are coming from the file system. So we've got the time scale, the duration of the video, 19.6 seconds. Now, if you do the math here between the created date and time and the modified date and time, it's 21 seconds, very close to this. There could be a reason that it's got a little bit of differential between these two times, but I can tell you, because I took this video, that this is the time I pressed record on the video. And this is the time I pressed stop recording of the video. So it was about 21 seconds of a video. Now this says 19.6. I don't know why it's off slightly. There's probably two different ways. This could be coming from a different measurement or a different part of the phone, or something is creating this versus this. But it is very, very close, obviously. And this could be a clue if you found it way off, where this maybe the modified and created date and time says the video should be 5 minutes, but you're only seeing 3, or you're seeing 20. It would be enough to want to go dig into and try and figure out, was this video split or did something happen? And then the volume, not too interesting from a forensic standpoint. Here you see the track created and modified date, which is exactly the same as the create and modified. There's only one track on this video. If you had multiple tracks, you could have entries for all of the different tracks. Track ID, there's just one. Duration, same thing that we've seen before. Here we get into the dimensions. So this is a 4K video being shot at 3840 by 2160. Gives us some information about the compressor, the colors, even the resolution information. And you can see here we're shooting this at essentially 30 frames per second. Now we get into some more things that are forensically interesting. We have an iPhone 14 Pro. That is my phone. I was using the back camera, and it gives me information about aperture, f-stop, things like that. And that it was, the audio's MP4, there was 2 channels, the sample rate. That forensically isn't so important. This certainly is something that you would be interested in most of the time forensically. We'll go back down. We're still in track 1. That's all we have in this. The vendor who created this video is Apple, and we'll keep going down. Now we get into even more interesting things. Now I deleted the GPS coordinates here. They were in there, but you may not have it if someone has turned off the GPS capabilities. However, generally you'll have the latitude and longitude and the height above sea level, their elevation. Here you see we have an Apple make, the model iPhone 14 Pro. It even gives you the OS. So this is iOS 18.2.1. The created date and time of when that video was taken, and the camera lens. So I have just the standard lens that is built in, but if somebody had if this was like a Canon or a Nikon digital camera, then it would give you more information about even the specific lens that was used to take a picture. We see the 4K here, the bit rate. Here we've got the GPS altitude. So I was 98.5 feet, and that's taken above sea level. So that was my altitude at the time. Now again, I removed the latitude, the longitude, and the full coordinates, but it would all be in here if the person had that turned on. So you can see there's a lot of information that would be very helpful to be able to pinpoint exactly what camera took something, the software version. That could be important if there's some question down the road of, was that software capable of doing this or that? And additional information about dates and times and GPS locations. So that's a really quick overview of Kali and ExifTool. Again, you can run ExifTool just natively on Windows, on Mac, or on a Linux machine. You don't need Kali. I just happen to be showing you in that platform. And you can use lots of other tools to do EXIF analysis as well. This is just the one I really like, so I thought I'd show it to you here.